So please be kind, because I'm sure I'll make some mistakes. So thank you again for being here. I appreciate that. We do have a quorum, and I would ask Mr. Clay, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Clay. And Ms. Kerr, go ahead.
Gene Curtis passed away on Monday, June 10th, after a short illness. Mr. Curtis was employed by Metro School's Maintenance Electronics Department and was most notable as an electronic wizard working on and repairing devices such as TVs, VCRs, and DVD players. Many of our schools have benefited from his work with projector system installations and in-house closed-circuit television channel installs. Before coming to work for MNPS, Mr. Curtis owned and operated his own television repair shop in Donaldson for many years. Glenn Brown, electronics supervisor, remembers Mr. Curtis as one of the most dedicated, hardworking employees in the department. Mr. Curtis's work ethic set a genuine example for other members of the maintenance department, and his contributions to the MNPS educational process were paramount, and he will be greatly missed. We'd like to take a minute to just recognize him in silence, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kerr. Mr. Steele.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to do two recognitions tonight. The first one is Miss Megan Lawrence. Are you here? Come on up. And Mr. Ron Woodard, principal of Maplewood High School. It's my honor to recognize Megan Lawrence, a physical trainer with Vanderbilt and future MNPS teacher. Ms. Lawrence was part of a group of efforts that sought to save the life of a student suffering from a heart attack at Maplewood. After the automated external defibrillator proved unsuccessful, Ms. Lawrence, detecting no pulse and no breathing, performed life-saving CPR maneuvers on the student. We are grateful for her training and commend her for the heroic action under duress.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, distinguished members of the school board, Dr. Register, Dr. Steele. And it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Again, we salute Ms. Megan Lawrence. Megan Lawrence is a teacher who's going to be joining us this fall in the Academy of Sports Medicine and Wellness. She was the athletic trainer with Vanderbilt, and she decided to come on board at Maplewood High School, and we're so excited about that. She is a lifesaver. On May 16th, we had a young man who collapsed in a classroom. And so as a result of him collapsing, we found that he had an enlarged heart. He went into cardiac arrest, and Megan was heroic. She helped me to revive this young man. So I want to thank you all also for having the AED machines in our schools. It was certainly a close call, and we were able to save a life due to her swift action. So on behalf of Maplewood High School and the Panther Nation, we'd like to present Megan with our own special award in honor of her heroism and bravery. The student who went through this tough ordeal is doing well now, is in full recovery, and is here tonight. He and his mother are here. I'd like to ask Kenneth to stand. Kenneth, would you stand in the back, please? Kenneth is a 9th grade honor student, and he's recovering well, and we'll be back next year. So thank you all for everything. Thanks.
All right, it's hard to top that one, but we have 2 people from Hillsborough High School that will be recognized tonight. The Hillsborough High School International Baccalaureate Program team has 2 more reasons to be proud. The International Baccalaureate Organization, which is headquartered in The Hague, the Netherlands, has named Shelley Wilkinson, a mathematics teacher at Hillsborough, and Holly Zayer, a theory of knowledge teacher at Hillsborough, both examiners for IB internal assessments. Wilkinson and Zayer are the first IB examiners from MNPS to have earned this distinction of being named an IB examiner. So Shelley and Holly, if you'll come forward. Come right over here.
Why don't you wait till announcements? As promised, I didn't want to disappoint y'all. I made a slight faux pas in the agenda, so we're going to go take one step back and go with announcements, and I'll start with Ms. Frog. No? Mr. Pinkston?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Vice Chair. I'd like to congratulate my friend, Candace McQueen, who's the Dean of the College of Education at Lipscomb University, on her college being named one of the top 4 teacher prep programs in America by the National Council on Teacher Quality. Perhaps not coincidentally, one of the other programs in the top 4 is Vanderbilt. So congratulations to Dean Camilla Benbow as well. The fact that we have 2 of the best teacher prep programs in America in Nashville bodes well for the future of Metro Nashville Public Schools. I think now we at MNPS have an obligation to do a better job leveraging those resources in our backyard, and I know that Ms. Thompson and Ms. Core and others are going to make that happen. I'd like, among other things, for us to consider developing more meaningful partnerships with these programs and work with the mayor and the council and others to secure the resources that may be needed. 2 weeks ago, our governance committee voted to establish, or excuse me, a month ago, our governance committee voted to establish a new teaching and learning committee. I'm hoping that whoever chairs that new panel will make this the first order of business. Second, I would like to congratulate our colleague, Jill Spearing, on being honored by the National Academy of Education, Arts, and Sciences with the 2013 Educator Voice Award. This award honors professional educators in more than 30 categories across the country and across the field. This year there were more than 500 nominations, and Ms. Spearing took the honor for School Board Member of the Year, well deserved. In her nomination letter, the person who nominated Jill noted that she has taught for 35 years as a classroom teacher and professional development leader. She's been a mentor to teachers across this district, a champion for high-quality early grades reading intervention. I am, and I know we all are, honored to serve on this board with her and her fellow educators on that side of the table. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Dr. Register? Ms. Jill?
Yes, I would like to, first of all, thank you, Will. I really appreciate that. And I also want to extend congratulations to Ms. Wilkinson and Ms. Zayer, who just were named the first IB teachers in Metro schools to receive the distinction of being named examiners. And Ms. Wilkinson and Ms. Zayer taught my grandson, and I've been very impressed with the individual, group, and peer tutoring that they provided for the students in IB. If a student wanted to work after school, the resources were provided for every student to learn in whichever way was most helpful for him. And they actually transformed my grandson from someone who felt very inadequate in math to someone who gained a certain amount of confidence and some expertise in math,
and as measured by the fact that he got a 90 for his second semester in math in the IB senior program. So I know it took a lot for them to get him to that, to make that transformation. So we are all proud of Ms. Wilkinson and Ms. Zayer and congratulate them and Hillsborough High School on this great honor. And also I wanted to say that there are 29 students at Hillsborough High School. I think this information just came out yesterday, wasn't it, Jay? 29 students at Hillsborough High School earned the full IB diploma, and 3 students at Hunters Lane. And it's very, I think it takes 24 credits, is that right? 24 credits, and that's including the examinations that they take at the end of the year, and the extended essay that they work on that for a whole semester. So congratulations to all those students who got the full IB diploma.
Dr. Brannon? No. Okay. I have a couple. Of board announcements. We'll have a work session on Tuesday, July the 23rd here at 5 p.m. And our next full board meeting is on Tuesday, August 13th at 5 p.m. here at this location. And then a couple of personal ones. The McGavock Cluster Coalition is sponsoring a town hall meeting on Tuesday, July 31st at 5 p.m. at McGavock High School. We'll have registration, we'll have a little town hall meeting, and then the tours will be available across the school. We also, 2 days later after that, we'll have our first day activities beginning at Dr. Register's favorite time, 6:15 in the morning. We have a lot of people that show up for that, and the children really enjoy it. They really get a lot out of it, and so do we as the adults there. And on Tuesday, August the 6th, HIP Donaldson will host a Night Out Against Crime for Donaldson Hermitage communities at McGavock High School from 6 to 8 p.m. We'll have the mayor there and a lot of other distinguished guests, so y'all come out and have a visit with us. I think that concludes our announcements. And now we will move on to public participation. The board will hear from those persons who have requested to appear at this board meeting. In the interest of time, speakers are requested to limit their comments to 3 minutes. Comments will be timed. Our first person in public participation is Amanda Schieffer.
Hi. Before I begin, I'd just like to request some leniency with the time, as I'm in my final days of pregnancy and finding it hard to breathe. So if I could just, a few seconds.
Okay, just a few seconds. We can appreciate that.
All right. I am here today as an advocate for students. My husband and I were matched with 2 boys as volunteer mentors for Big Brothers Big Sisters 7 years ago. The younger of the 2 struggles to focus at school and maintain positive peer relationships, both characteristic of his ADHD diagnosis. In 2011, he enrolled at KIPP Academy Nashville as a 5th grader. We were hopeful that KIPP would embrace his differences and offer him tools for success. However, this past February, he was told he must leave KIPP because of a broken behavior contract. We asked the school leader if she would allow him to finish the year if we increased our involvement and put immediate interventions in place. We knew that a spring transition would be difficult for him, but KIPP refused to let him stay for the remainder of the year. Before signing withdrawal papers, his parent requested a psychological evaluation. KIPP had never initiated any testing, even though they deemed his behavior disruptive enough to warrant his dismissal. By law, potential disabilities and formalized behavior plans should be considered prior to expulsion, but choice schools get around this by sending students back to zoned schools. The student remained at KIPP during the course of the evaluation. During that time period, we met with all of his teachers, enrolled him in counseling at Oasis Center, reminded him daily to complete homework, bought him a belt and shoes to ensure compliance with the dress code, made sure he went to all assigned detentions, and served those detentions with him. We relayed information to his parent, who could not get to the temporary KIPP location easily on the bus and frequently worked late hours. At the conclusion of the psychological evaluation in April, an eligibility meeting was finally held. The evaluation results indicated that the student would qualify for exceptional education services. A discussion of his disability followed. KIPP proceeded with his dismissal anyway. He entered Jerry Baxter Middle School just days before TCAP testing began. I am here today to ask you to examine any policy that allows schools to decide who they will and will not teach. When a student enters a school, charter, magnet, or zoned, it is the obligation of that school to serve him and meet his needs. Zoned schools must develop behavior plans, implement IEPs, and exhaust all resources before dismissing a child. Choice schools clearly do not have to do the same before forcing a child to leave. Shuffling students around the district is not in the best interest of those students or our system, especially our most at-risk children. As a teacher, I have never once attended an education class in which getting rid of a student was suggested as a means to manage behavior, improve class climate, or raise academic achievement. In contrast, we learn to think creatively, find resources, and build positive relationships with students. As inconvenient as this may be in these times of performance rankings, evaluations, and overall high stakes, it is our responsibility to make sure that all students are being served adequately and that the decisions we make about their lives are ethical and implemented equally across all schools in our district. Thank you.
Next, we have Ashley Croft.
Hi, my name is Ashley Croft. I'm a teacher at Isaac Litton Middle School, and I'm a member of Stand for Children. I just completed my 5th year of teaching and was recently recognized by TEA as Tennessee's Distinguished New Educator for Middle Schools. In 2008, I graduated from Vanderbilt University, which is recognized as one of the top teacher prep programs in the country, and I immediately began looking for teaching positions. Despite graduating from a local school, I originally was not looking in Nashville, mostly because no one from MNPS ever came to me and said, "We want you to work here." I applied in places like Chicago. I was looking in rural South Carolina, mostly wanting a challenging and rewarding teaching experience. I even attended a local recruitment fair where I met those other districts, and there was no MNPS representative present, even after I waited for about half an hour at the empty booth. I eventually went to Chicago, traveled there for a recruitment event they were having for new graduates. They toured us around the city, we went to different schools, and that ended with a recruitment fair where we got to meet with all of the different principals. And they even trained us before that recruitment fair about how that would go and what sort of things we could do in talking to the principals while we're looking for a job. It's by a stroke of luck that I ended up teaching in MNPS, and I really could not have been more lucky. I've had an incredible experience here. I worked on the asset work. I was a member of the first cohort of TLI. I've been a technology leader at my school and have been part of a pretty incredible school turnaround at Litton. In the fall, I'll be attending Harvard University to pursue my master's in school leadership, and I hope that I get to return to MNPS. This is my story, but you should know that there are a lot more like it, except those teachers are not here today to tell you that story. They have been recruited by and are teaching in districts like Sumner, Williamson County, Memphis, Chicago, New York, all over. And they're changing the lives of children there. MNPS has done its part to retain effective teachers by creating a variety of professional development opportunities and incentives. But there's more work to be done on that recruitment and selection front. The moves we're making are the right ones, and it's my hope that we continue in this direction. I just ask that you keep teacher recruitment and selection at the center of your strategic plans as you think about teacher quality, because we know that teacher quality is vital to improving the outcomes for Nashville's children. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Jamie Gutter.
Hello, my name is Jamie Guter, and I'm a 4th grade teacher at Glenview Elementary here in Nashville. I'm a member of Stand for Children, a grassroots education organization that advocates for local and state policy changes and investments to ensure that all children, regardless of background, graduate from high school prepared for and have access to a college education. Teacher quality is the most important factor in student achievement. In order to ensure more high-quality teachers lead the classroom in our district, MNPS can focus on recruitment strategies targeted at excellent candidates who are most likely to improve student achievement while closing the achievement gap. Today, I'd like to bring teacher recruitment into the spotlight and highlight the best practices MNPS can fold into their current work. The National Council on Teacher Quality assesses staffing in urban districts across the U.S. When looking at these policies and practices, They look for districts that recruit candidates with professional and personal characteristics correlated with teacher effectiveness. They select and assign at the school level and with mutual consent. School leaders use teacher performance as a key factor in staffing decisions, and principals are trained on low-cost retention strategies for top teachers. The NCTQ also recommends that to increase the likelihood of recruiting and retaining quality teachers, districts should gather significant data points on current hiring practices, such as diversity of teachers hired and lost, 3-year teacher turnover rates at every school, undergraduate institutions of all teachers, including new hires, and evaluation ratings for teachers accessed and retained. Currently, MNPS has over 79,000 students and approximately 6,000 teachers, yet we employ only one full-time teacher recruiter who does a phenomenal job despite the incredible demands. Last year, MNPS hired 553 teachers. Districts of similar size, like Austin, Milwaukee, and Denver, have a range between 3 and 6 recruiters on staff and bring in anywhere between 250 to 900 new teachers every year. In Tennessee, the Higher Education Commission produces an annual report that can point district recruiters to preparation programs that are producing highly effective teachers. To appropriately utilize this information, the MNPS Human Capital Department requires staff time dedicated to active recruitment. In MNPS, roughly 77% of students are minorities, while only 25% of teachers are minorities. Because of the low number of applicants in STEM-related areas and teachers of color, the National Education Association recommends aggressive recruitment activities to increase diversity among the teaching corps, like organizing media campaigns in minority communities and recruiting from the business and military sectors, all of which requires increased resources in the Human Capital Department. As an educator and joined by fellow educators, I hope the district will continue to work with us and take this research into account to develop recruiting practices that will ensure we fill our classrooms with the best teachers every day, every year, regardless of zip code. Thank you.
Thank you. Meredith Robinson.
My name is Meredith Robinson. My son was in Miss Sherry Martin's 2nd grade class this past school year. He loves Miss Martin, and he has always felt loved and protected by her. As a parent, I have observed Miss Martin's interactions with her students many times in the classroom. She is consistently professional and firm while maintaining a warm and approachable manner. Yes, Miss Martin is a top-notch veteran teacher who was Teacher of the Year at Hattie Cotton only 3 years ago. How does a teacher who has excelled with glowing reviews and solid teaching practices go from Teacher of the Year to this in 2 school years? I'll tell you, she was wrongly judged by one person. No teacher should be brought up on charges for dismissal based on the evaluations of one person. Ms. Lewis, the principal at Laughlin Design Center, was the only person to observe and evaluate her. This is about more than just Ms. Martin, though. The results of the TEL survey reveal some alarming statistics about how teachers at Laughlin feel about school leadership. These facts can be seen in my handout. Only 36% of Laughlin teachers feel comfortable raising issues and concerns that are important to them. Only 65% of them feel that Laughlin is a good place to work and learn. I love the teachers at Laughlin, and it makes me sad to know that they are not being supported as they should. Personally, I've noticed over the 3 years that my son has attended Laughlin that the diversity of the instructors has not reflected the diversity of the community. Our community in East Nashville welcomes and encourages diversity, but the principal of Laughlin has only hired young, female, white teachers. To my knowledge, she has not hired a minority teacher. Please don't let the 18-year teaching career of a wonderful teacher end because of what one person claims she observed, when almost 60% of teachers at Laughlin feel that teacher performance is not assessed objectively. Is it really fair to dismiss Sherry Martin? Thank you for considering.
Thank you. Thomas Robinson?
My name is Thomas Robinson. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for your time this evening. You are tasked with a very difficult job. When a tenured and respected teacher's career hangs in the balance. Whenever a life-defining decision like this is made, whether it be in corporate America or academia, it is imperative that you have all of the facts and all of the data to make a well-informed decision. What we believe here, as supporters of Ms. Sherry Martin, is that you have not been given all of the facts and all of the data. And the information that you do have access to is biased and flawed and in no way empirical. Let us start with the facts of what we know. Ms. Martin is an 18-year veteran of the Metropolitan School System with an exemplary record with 0 disciplinary actions against her prior to her time coming to Lockland. Ms. Martin was selected the Teacher of the Year at Hattie Cotton in her last year prior to transferring to Lockland. In her first year there, she was given her first negative evaluation, which was a 2, in her first semester at Lockland. Years of service, Teacher of the Year, the prior school to a recommendation of termination, all in just 2 years at Lockland Design Center. As parents, to hear that is alarming. As a community, we expect better from our teachers. So as a community, we had to start doing some digging. And what we found is that your process of evaluating the teaching staff was the most alarming process of all. In Ms. Martin's letter of intent to terminate, it states the following. Your method of teaching is inefficient as illustrated by your evaluation scores from 2011 to 2013. Which were below expectation. Goes on to say, because of your unprofessional conduct, unbecoming of a teacher with MNPS, and inefficiency as a teacher, you must be terminated from your employment with MNPS. What is alarming to us as parents, and any individual with a sound logic mind, is that these recommendations were not made by a group of peers, they were not made by a committee, they were made by just one person. No checks and balances, just one person. Upon the discovery process, we as parents found the Tell Tennessee survey results for Lockland, and they were enlightening to say the least. Other parents have or will go over these numbers with the members of the board, but to be as salient as possible, to have a woman's career and reputation hang in the balance based on an evaluation process in which 60% of the teachers at Lockland feel is not administered objectively, is a profound implication of the process and of the evaluator, whoever that evaluator may be. Now, to the somewhat subjective part of the argument, upon arrival to Lockland, Christy Lewis stated that Sherry Martin did not fit the look that Lockland was going for, and reminded her numerous times that Christy did not hire Sherry. What is the look that Lockland's going for? Does it look like me? Does it look like my son? What does it look like? What is that look? Christy also stated that Lockland is East Nashville's best kept secret. What does that mean? Are we now an exclusive school? Have we gone from exclusive or inclusive to exclusive? This is a very diverse community. As parents who live here, we would like to keep it that way. In closing, please read the letters that many of the parents wrote in regards to Sherry's success as a teacher.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you.
We have Teresa Madole.
Hello, my name is Teresa Madole, and I have 3 children that attend Lockland Design Center. I have been a part of this wonderful school for 5 years, and as a former educator, I'm very appreciative of the quality of education that my children have received from Lockland. We chose Lockland because we wanted our children to attend a school that embraces diversity. East Nashville is a melting pot of equality and diversity. Unfortunately, Lockland is becoming less diverse each year. My husband and I have had the pleasure to serve this school in many ways through volunteering in the classroom, assisting in the library, being room parents, supporting school fundraisers, and even providing a walking track for the school. The reason I state these few things that we've done is so that you guys understand that we feel invested. My husband and I feel invested in Lockland. We support the school financially as well as through our involvement on a daily basis, and we are willing to help a teacher or the administrator with any need. You, as the board members, have been elected to represent the parents, teachers, and most importantly, our children. I would really like for you to rethink how Ms. Martin was evaluated. The principal placed her on an action plan, and she was the only person of authority evaluating Ms. Martin. This allowed for her to be sole judge, jury, and executioner. Ms. Martin and I both have been told by the principal that she is not a fit for Lockland. I feel that Ms. Martin was set up for failure due to the lack of checks and balances. If a person that continues to evaluate Ms. Martin is the same individual that wants her removed, then I say this as your system is flawed. My husband and I support Ms. Lewis as a principal, and we feel that she has done a good job, but we strongly, strongly disagree with her on this issue. My daughter was in Ms. Martin's second grade class last year. Rachel's a very bright child who can become easily bored when not challenged. Ms. Martin has kept Rachel engaged and challenged. I've never seen the kind of growth that I experienced during this past school year. Miss Martin, before Miss Martin's class, it was a daily struggle to get her to do her homework without me having to ask multiple times. But Miss Martin raised that bar to where she knew she had to be responsible for herself, and she was able to do that. By the end of last year, Rachel made straight A's the entire year and raised her reading level from a 32 to a 44. As a room parent for Rachel's class, I am in the room a great deal of time. I have only experienced a positive, nurturing, and loving environment that has fully prepared my child for third grade. I feel that Sherry Martin has done a great job, so I respectfully ask you to allow Miss Martin to continue her 18-year teaching career. If she's not a so-called fit for Laughlin, let her transfer. But do not let one person be judge and jury over an 18-year teaching career. Thank you.
Susan Hawes.
Good afternoon. I'm Susan Hawes. I've been a Laughlin parent since 2007, and I currently have a rising 6th grader at East Nashville Magnet, a rising 3rd grader at Laughlin, and a 3-year-old daughter who will hopefully get into Laughlin in 2015. I am one of the most active Laughlin parents, a former preschool teacher and MNPS substitute teacher, who spends several days a week inside the building working in the library, in the classrooms, and for the last 2 years teaching an upper-level book club. I see a lot of what goes on inside the school building. My son, Henry Hawes, had the privilege of having Miss Sherry Martin as his 4th grade science, social studies, and grammar teacher for the 2011-12 school year. He absolutely adored her then and still does 2 years later. I asked him what it was that he found so special, and he said she always made the class interesting and fun, but she didn't stand for any back-talking or bad conduct. He loved her stories and said they really helped him better understand what they were learning about. I began to watch her closely while I was in the school, or volunteering, or on field trips. She had such a wonderful rapport with the students and was able to laugh with them and relate to them on a personal level while still maintaining the role of teacher. I sent an email to Mrs. Lewis telling her how pleased we were with Miss Martin and thanking her for bringing quality teachers to Laughlin. I didn't know at the time that Miss Martin was not selected by Mrs. Lewis, nor did I know anything about their strained relationship. When Henry's TCAP scores returned, I expected to find an excellent report for math and language arts. He's a high-achieving student who started school a year early and still performs well above grade level in both math and reading. But it turned out that his scores in science and social studies were higher than his math and reading scores, achieving advanced ratings not just overall, but in all subsections. I congratulated him on his scores, and he credited Miss Martin. He said she often gave them more work than the other teachers, and he said that she always told them she expected more of them than even they knew they could give, because she had taught middle school before and she knew what they were about to be up against, and it was her job to prepare them for it. I could tell it was something she really impressed upon him because he rattled it off like he was teaching me something. After completing his first year of middle school, ending the year with all A's for his TCAP scores as well as his final grades, he still credited Miss Martin for preparing him. Every time I saw Miss Martin at school this year, she'd ask me how her boy Henry and all her babies were doing in middle school. She always had a smile and a hug to offer. She had what I considered to be quite a challenging class this year, with a high number of students with developmental, social, emotional, or learning delays, as well as a couple of students I would politely call handfuls. But she greeted each one with the same hug and high expectations she's become known for. I'd like to stay under my 3 minutes here and conclude with this. These two women we're talking about here, Mrs. Lewis and Miss Martin, may be diminutive in stature, but their small frames are housing two pretty large personalities, both full of passion for and a love of guiding children on their way to a life of learning and a future of unlimited possibilities, rather than ending this by punishing a proven, decorated teacher who has given nearly 2 decades of service to our community and would graciously like to continue. It seems like a better alternative would be to separate these two big personalities into 2 different metro schools, allowing the children to reap the benefits. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Stephanie Jones.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Urbina Jones, and I want to start by thanking you for your service. I realize that you have been elected by us, the parents, to carry the burden of an important decision making, and I thank you for listening and being open to seeing a bigger picture here and how vital it is to the overall well-being of our educational system. I have to be honest and tell you that I was afraid to speak, to show up for fear of the potential consequences and backlash that might happen to my child. But the truth is, I have never in my life, so far, been so moved by an injustice as I have been this past week when I heard that Ms. Martin may be terminated. In my opinion, the situation is the canary in the mine. It is about Ms. Martin, but it is about our current flawed system that allows one person the power to judge and be the jury that can even decide the fate of a woman's career, even when mounting evidence and opinions of parents and teachers suggest to the contrary. In this case, a celebrated, loved, respected teacher with an 18-year career terminated? I don't think so. I was so excited for my daughter to be accepted into Laughlin Design Center, where our Hispanic heritage and cultural diversity are celebrated. I felt we'd finally turned the page and that her generation would be proud of their differences. As a Mexican-American woman, I have personally experienced the unspoken yet painful prejudice that still exists in looks and actions that speak louder than words. I mention this because I too feel that diversity and that which we value most in Laughlin is being threatened here as well. Culturally, we all bring a unique way of expressing ourselves that should be honored and respected. Ms. Martin has her own beautiful way that could be misinterpreted, but is experienced by most as respectful, kind, confident, easygoing, wise, and powerful. My daughter is a strong leader herself, and being an only child, frequently demands attention. Ms. Martin is the only teacher so far that has helped Zeta integrate her gifts without shaming her. Zeta was struggling with reading and by mid-year was beyond the expected reading level and excelling in math and science, beaming in confidence. Even more than her grades, my daughter has grown as a human being under Ms. Martin's guidance. It is evident that she is a veteran of great value as a teacher and role model. Thank you, Ms. Martin, for standing up for yourself. For in standing up for yourself, you have stood up for us all. I respectfully ask that each of you take a moment to look deeper into the heart of the situation, hearing from parents and children who have been gifted and personally experienced Ms. Martin. I ask, can you sleep knowing that you've terminated not only a great teacher, mother, sole provider of her own family who has passionately dedicated her entire adult life and been celebrated for teaching children, now that you've heard other powerful sides of the story? I pray that you cannot. I pray you too feel led to acknowledge the differences and respectfully transfer Ms. Martin so she can continue to gift our children for years to come.
Thank you. Jennifer Gordon.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Gordon, and I am the parent of a rising third grader at Laughlin and a rising sixth grader at Meggs, both of whom had Miss Sherry Martin as a teacher. I feel privileged to have been a Laughlin parent for the past 6 years. Before I left to start a family, I was an elementary school public teacher for the Los Angeles Unified School District. I know how hard teachers work, and I'm so grateful for their service. My older son had Miss Martin in 4th grade, her first year at Laughlin Design Center. He had her for social studies, science, and grammar. His 4th grade TCAP scores in these subjects were all advanced. His science score was in the top 3% in the state. Communication with Miss Martin was excellent. She was always willing to meet with me, even during her breaks, to discuss questions and concerns I had. My son spoke fondly of Miss Martin, describing her as strict but a lot of fun. This year, my younger son had Miss Martin as a 2nd grade teacher for all his academic subjects. He was an almost straight A student all year. He did get 2 Bs. His reading level went from a 24 at the beginning of the year to a 44 by the end of the year, and I believe that's about mid-5th grade level. Again, communication was excellent, and she was always available. Whenever I asked my son about his teacher, his responses were always very positive. I also spent a lot of time in her classroom this year helping with activities, projects, and special events. I was always welcomed with open arms. In the many hours I spent in her classroom, I never witnessed anything inappropriate or unbecoming of an MNPS teacher. As a parent and educator, I know how important and hard it is to find competent, experienced, and caring teachers who are passionate and enthusiastic about teaching our children. Ms. Sherry Martin is one of those teachers, and terminating her employment with MNPS would not only be an injustice to her, but to future students who will be denied the privilege to have her as their teacher and the chance to let her make a positive, lasting impact on their lives. And then I also have a letter written by one of her students that I was asked to read. It says, "Hi, my name is August Pyle, and I am one of Miss Martin's students. I think Miss Martin is really nice. She teaches very well, and I have told stories that are very nice about her, and I love her. My sister wants her as a teacher, so please don't take Miss Martin away from me. Sad face. Signed, August." Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Jeremy Payer.
Good evening. Thank you for listening. I just want to say that I support Ms. Martin as a teacher. Being a parent of Zeta West, she's done a wonderful job, and I think everything has been said that needs to be said there. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to governance issues. Ms. Kim.
All right, the longest consent agenda ever in the history of the school board. So consent items. A, approval of minutes, 6/11/13 regular meeting and 6/25/13 special meeting. B, recommended award of contract, architect for new Antioch Cluster Elementary School, Gould Turner Group, MBOE 13013. C, recommended award of contract, architect for new Goodlettsville Middle School, joint venture, Artevis and Gresham Smith and Partners, MBOE 800350.13.1A. D, recommended award of contract, architect for Madison Middle School additions, Thomas Miller and Partners, MBOE 800545.13.1A. E, recommended award of contract, architect for Maxwell Elementary School additions, Melvin Gill and Associates, MBOE 800552.13.1A. F, recommended award of contract, architect for Shane Elementary School additions, Goodwin Mills, Kaywood Architects, MBOE 800682.13.1A. G, recommended award of contract, architect for Granbury Elementary School additions, Atkinson and Associates Architects, MBOE 800370.13.1A. H, recommended award of contract, architect for Waverly Belmont Elementary School additions and renovations, Tuck Hinton Architects, MBOE 800018.13.1A. I, recommended award of contract, paving at Julia Green Elementary School, BAC Paving Company, Inc., MBOE 800380.13.2J. J, recommended award of contract, engineer for fire safety features at McGavick High School, MP&E Engineering, MBOE 800532.13.1H. K, recommended award of contract, piping replacement at Hillwood High School, Ryan Reynolds, Inc., MBOE FGM 2013-03. L, change order number 1 for Apollo Middle School HVAC renovations, Advanced Mechanical Contractors, FGM 2013-01. M, change order number 1 for roof replacement at Glen Elementary School, RSS MBOE 13006. N, change order number 2 for district-wide maintenance, repairs, and general construction, construction of Jolton Middle School administrative and guidance offices at Haynes Middle School, Southland Constructors M434. O, change order number 2 for district-wide maintenance, repairs, and general construction, special ADA accommodations at Cane Ridge High School, Carrie G. Campbell, Inc., M-433. P, change order number 3 for district-wide maintenance, repairs, and general construction, the Academy at Hickory Hollow, Southland Constructors, M-434. Q, recommended approval of lease for Spectrum Center, Inc. of Tennessee's use of the old Hickman School building. R, recommended approval to surplus property, a portion of the McMurray Middle School site. S, awarding of bids and contracts. 1, Avid Center. 2, Wellchild, Inc. 3, Otis Educational Systems, Inc. 4, Intrepid College Prep. 5, Intrepid College Prep. 6, Terracon, Inc. 7, Washington Music Center. 8, Sam Ash Quick Ship Corp. 9, West Music Company. 10, Taylor Music, Inc. 11, Music and Arts. 12, Angela Formosa Foods, Inc. 13, Easy Hoods. 14, Holiday Inn Select Nashville, Opryland Airport. 15, Vanderbilt University, Susan Gray School. 16, Belmead UMC Children's Center. 17, the Library Corporation. 18, Clara Sale Davis. 19, Learning Matters, Inc. 20, YTRI LLC. 21, Vanderbilt University. 22, Parapol, Inc. 23, Microsoft Corporation. 24, DPEI, Distinguished Professionals Education Institute. 25, Washington Music Sales Center. 26, Institutional Wholesale Company. 27, Purpose Preparatory Academy. 28, Nashville Classical. 29, Lead Southeast. And 30, Kiepp High School. T, recommended approval of legal settlement claim number L15724 for $10,000. U, recommended approval of special adoption textbooks, agriscience, recording 2, publishing 2, and small animal care. And V, recommended approval of local consolidated application for federal funding.
Can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Dr. Register.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I have a recommendation to certify dismissal charges for Sherry Martin. Please listen to the letter carefully after the presentations tonight. Dear board members, I am writing to recommend the dismissal of Sherry Martin from employment as a tenured teacher with Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated subsection 49-5-511. I have charged her with unprofessional conduct, unbecoming a teacher, with MNPS and inefficiency, which are grounds for her dismissal pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 49-5-511. These terms are specifically defined in Tennessee Code Annotated 49-5-501. Evidence supporting these charges was set forth in my letter to Sherry Martin on July 3rd, 2013, a copy of which is attached. I'm asking you to certify these charges by voting that, if proven true, these charges warrant Ms. Martin's dismissal. Should you certify these charges, I'll inform Ms. Martin of your action and formally advise her of the right to request a hearing before an impartial hearing officer. At the present time, I am only asking you to certify the charges. I am not asking you to weigh evidence either for or against dismissal. I am merely asking you to vote that the charges, if proven true, warrant dismissal. If Ms. Martin requests a hearing, it will occur at some point in the future. Accordingly, it is my recommendation that Sherry Martin be dismissed from employment with the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools.
Thank you, Dr. Vice Chair. Can I get a motion and a second?
So move to certify the charges as read.
A second? I will second. All approve?
Can we have discussion?
Yes, let's do.
Honestly, the comments tonight did give me pause. And the parents that came to speak tonight have provided us a lot of information that obviously we have not had time to read and review. And I'm thinking that perhaps we could schedule this vote for a later meeting after we've had time to review the information that was presented tonight, because I was really struck by the sincerity of the parents. Want to answer that?
Well, yes, I understand that, but I'd ask our attorney to come up to the mic. The due process is very explicit. It's set out in law. What you're voting on tonight is only a statement that, if proven true, these charges warrant dismissal. And after notification of this, then the person would have the person involved, the teacher, would have an opportunity to appeal and follow a due process. So I'd ask our attorney to detail that. That is the process that we follow.
Yes, the notice of charges that's been issued lists several charges, 7 charges, that it's up to the board to determine if these are true, they would be sufficient to terminate Ms. Martin. Of course, we've heard from people tonight talking about this case, and they would obviously be part of the process if this were to go to a hearing. But this is not a vote to determine whether or not Ms. Martin should be terminated or remain a teacher with MNPS. There is a very clear statutory process that provides teachers a hearing. It's not even an appeal. It's a hearing before an impartial hearing officer, where all of the witnesses can come in and be heard. I won't go through all of the charges against Ms. Martin because you all have had a chance to review those. But I would like to go through a couple of the charges that I think.
I'd like to speak also because I am Sherry Martin.
The allegations that are here tonight are very serious, and I obviously did a legal review, not Ms. Lewis. I reviewed the allegations and all of the file on Ms. Martin to determine that these charges should be brought and were justified in being brought. Of course, that doesn't mean there's not 2 sides to every story, because there is, but what has been brought tonight is the charges of Ms. Lewis, who is also here this evening, if anyone wants to hear from her. But the charges are that on March 13th of 2013, Ms. Martin was observed by Ms. Lewis sitting at a table in her 2nd grade classroom at Laughlin Design Center. She was observed shouting instructions to her students regarding a math assignment, and one of her students came over to ask for assistance with a math problem, and Ms. Martin said to him in a loud and demeaning tone, "Don't you come over here looking at me. What did I tell you to do? Go." And perhaps even more concerning than that, if it can be more concerning than using a demeaning tone to a 2nd grader, even after that incident, and she was warned about that incident, on May 1st of 2013, another teacher, not Ms. Lewis, but another teacher reported that she had been in Ms. Martin's classroom while the SAT 10 was being administered. And this teacher said, "Usually I don't get involved in other people's business, but I felt compelled to report this," that Ms. Martin was repeatedly during the administration of the SAT 10 checking her text messages and working on her cell phone while she was reading the questions, and she was missing her place, losing her place, and reading questions incorrectly and in a confusing manner. And when the students asked Ms. Martin to clarify the question that she was asking them, Ms. Martin said, was hostile to them and accused them of not listening and of not paying attention to the test, which was very upsetting to the students. And so this teacher felt compelled to report that to the principal. This has been a repeated history, and there are multiple occasions where Ms. Martin was warned throughout the file about speaking to students in a demeaning manner. And I think it is obviously up to interpretation whether somebody is just being strict or somebody's being demeaning. But the principal, and not only the principal, but also the objective evaluation scoring process for 2 years determined that Ms. Martin was inefficient. She fell below expectations for 2 years in 2011, 2012, and 2012, 2013. So all of these could be hashed out in a hearing. And of course, the parents could be heard by the hearing officer. Ms. Martin could be heard by the hearing officer. The principal could be heard by the hearing officer as well.
Ms. Sinback, if I may ask, if you would talk about the due process rights of a tenured teacher through that hearing process. And I think there are 2 main steps, and I don't want to leave anything out, but this is a first step, not the last. And a hearing's held before an administrative law judge, and then the person, if the administrative law judge rules against the person being brought for dismissal, the person has a right to appeal back to the Board of Education. Then the Board of Education makes a decision about whether it wants to hear the case or to rule on the record. And so it's a beginning of a due process opportunity. It's not your charge tonight to rule in favor of or against a dismissal, simply to say, if the charges are true, this warrants bringing charges for dismissal.
That's exactly right, and that's the question before the board. Does anyone have any questions?
I did. She's suspended without pay. This is her
She's-
livelihood. This is a teacher.
I'm sorry.
So no.
This is not a point of discussion for the audience. This is a point of discussion for the board members here. Thank you.
Forgot my question. So when it comes back before the board, I understand this is not a time that we are to make a factual determination. When it comes back before the board, it will be our choice as to whether to rehear the facts of the case.
No, what will happen is within 30 days, Ms. Martin will have, if the charges are certified, she can request a hearing before an impartial hearing officer, and then that hearing officer will make a decision, and if she disagrees with that decision, then she can bring that back before the board.
And then we are allowed to make the decision as to whether we will vote based on the record or whether we will conduct a factual hearing?
You would not conduct a factual hearing.
We would
You
just review
on
the
record.
fact, but we would be reviewing the facts on the record from the appeal.
Yes, from the hearing officer, which when there's a hearing, there's a court reporter there, and we actually have one coming up next week. The court reporter takes everything down in a transcript, and then the board is able to review that.
And how long does it usually take before the hearing on appeal is heard?
It has to be within, I believe it's 45 days. They're typically very quick. One that we just certified is actually coming, I've only been here since March. We certified one recently, and it's coming up for hearing next week. And that's just because she agreed to waive her timeliness of her hearing. So they are very rapid. It's not months and months down the line. We're trying to have them as quickly as we can for the benefit of the teachers.
And last question, is it typical when the teacher is dismissed that is a decision based within the sole discretion of the principal?
The principal typical is not, it's hard to say what's typical depending on certain circumstances, but the principal's has the primary responsibility for making this recommendation for school-based staff.
The principal makes the recommendation. It goes through employee relations. The entire record is gathered on the teacher's central office personnel file as well as her school-based personnel file as far back as it goes. And then that comes to the Department of Law for review. Many of them we reject, and some of them, if we feel that it warrants termination under one of the statutory causes, which is unprofessional conduct, inefficiency, insubordination. There's a list under the statute. Then we bring the notice of charges to see if the board wants to certify it. Well, Dr. Register brings the charges to the board to see if it warrants, if you determine that it would warrant termination if the charges are found to be true in a hearing.
Do we have any more questions?
Oh, I don't.
Dr. Brandon?
Yes, just for information, can I find out how long the principal has been at Laughlin?
3 years.
3 years.
Ms. Berry?
I'll just say I don't feel good about this. We've heard some compelling stories from our parents that are very different than from the principal's perspective. She's got an 18-year career and was Teacher of the Year. And that was voted not only by the principal, but her peers, I suspect. So the TEL survey is disturbing. When you think that 63% of the teachers feel that they're uncomfortable even raising issues or concerns, and that 59% don't believe that they're assessed objectively. These are concerns that make me question this.
Any more questions of Ms. Sendak?
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a motion and a second.
One more comment. I'm really struggling with what to do because I understand on one hand that we are supposed to just be voting that we are not making a factual determination. And I want to follow the statutory process. Thank you. But I suppose I suppose the answer is to honor the process. But then if this teacher is in fact, after termination, if her appeal is denied, then we can revisit the facts at that time. But I really am struggling with what to do, because I don't want to just be a cog in the wheel. I mean, I don't want to just check the box if it's not the right thing to do.
Any other discussion?
So what happens if the charges are not certified? So this board does not vote to certify the charges?
Then the teacher is not dismissed.
Well, it's not automatic that you do not get dismissed anyway, right? So even if we certify the charges, the teacher does not get dismissed.
The proceeding stops here.
So what happens with the teacher?
Teacher remains employed.
Okay.
But she would have, would she have the right to ask for a transfer this time of year? Would that be possible? Is it too late for transfers if there's a conflict between?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor of certifying the charges?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
We need a hand vote. Ms. Gentry?
Nay.
Nay. How many nays? We have 4 nays. 1, 2, 3, 4 ayes.
You have 1 absent.
1
It's a
absent.
tie vote.
Yep.
Send back.
Yes, so the chair votes in that situation.
Here.
I did.
She already voted.
I did.
4-4.
It's 4-4.
Could we revisit this?
I would think that we can't move forward just because there is no majority, that the charges are not certified.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Spearing?
Yes. I'm bringing a motion before the board tonight, and I have a few comments to make prior to that. I just want to say that resources are scarce. And as we go into our next year's budget, which we are beginning to, that will occur right away, is that right? Will. And having had the first budget experience under my belt as a new board member, I have a desire to have an even more informed process as we go through this next cycle. And and during this budget cycle, we had to use $20 million out of our fund balance, and we certainly don't want to do that again. Considering the whirlwind of activity over the past 12 months, and to demonstrate our cooperative spirit with the Metro Council and with other Metro agencies, I make the following motion. As a proactive measure in crafting the 2014-2015 Metro MNPS budget, I move that the board request a comprehensive review of the current 2013-2014 budget as a joint venture between the budget and the governance committees of the board. This review will allow for any modifications to ensure that our fiscal responsibilities and our policy governance practices are aligned so that they complement the mission, the goals, and objectives of MNPS.
That's a motion. A second.
Oh, okay. Any discussion? No discussion? Okay, we'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Ms. Spearing. And Ms. Spearing had another motion she was going to bring tonight, but she has decided to defer that action to the next business meeting, so we'll discuss that at that time. Moving on to Director's Report, Dr. Register.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got one report that we're very pleased to give to the board tonight as a part of the Director's Report, and I'll call on Jay Steele to introduce our presenter tonight to talk about the Cambridge ACE program. Jay, I want to ask you to do a proper introduction, if you will.
It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sharon Cheney. She is the Director of Advanced Academics and Talent Development, which is a position that we created this spring that will be responsible for the Encore program, the Advanced Placement Program, International Baccalaureate programs, the AVID program, and a new program which you're going to learn about tonight that's starting in 4 high schools this fall. It's the Cambridge Advanced International Certificate of Education out of the University of Cambridge. The United States is one of several countries around the world in every continent that the Cambridge program offers the British A-level exams to our students, and this credit is accepted at every international university, including universities here in Tennessee. So at Dr. Cheney, we'll also introduce a new employee, and I'll let her do that, who is our coordinator for Encore program. That's not his title, though.
No, right. Bishop? Yeah. It needs to be like, yeah, there we go. Good evening, everyone. I'm so pleased to be able to share with you some information about these exciting Cambridge programs that will be available to 4 high schools in our district this fall. Those 4 high schools are Cane Ridge, McGavock, Overton, and Whites Creek. And because the Cambridge programs are headquartered in the UK, the British spelling of the word programs is our tip of the hat to them on that first slide. Of course, there are acronyms with this program to add to our collection, to add to our growing collection. 3 main ones, one of which Jay has already mentioned, that's the ACE, and then the CIE and the IGSE. The Cambridge International Examinations, or the CIE, is really an examination board within a parent assessment group. And the logo for that assessment group you see in the lower right corner of the slide. That Cambridge Assessment Group was established in 1858. So they've been at it a long time, and they do it very well. The ACE program, the Advanced International Certificate of Education courses, are designed for juniors and seniors at high school, and students who perform well and pass their examinations can earn a certificate for the ACE, for their ACE work. And then the IGSE, the International General Certificate of Secondary Education courses, are designed for freshmen and sophomores in the high schools. I talked with a principal of a high school in Virginia by phone who said that he was convinced that the enormous gains in reading and math at his school could be directly attributable to the IGSE courses and to getting students ready for whatever they wanted to do in their future learning careers. So taken together, the ACE and the IGSE make up the Cambridge program. Also in our district, as you are well aware, and as Jill Spearing has spoken about tonight, there are other international courses available to our students through the authorized IB programs. And so it's helpful, I think, to consider what these 2 international programs offer in case we are asked to explain the differences in the 2. The missions of the 2 programs are really quite eloquent, as the first bullets indicate, and they are international in scope. They both require teacher training, without which the teachers and the students can't know what's expected in the courses and in the assessments, and they both offer the diploma, an ACE diploma or an IB diploma, diploma at the end. One of the differences is in the amount of time required to get approval. For the Cambridge programs, this can happen in a few months, but for the IB, it requires at least 2 years by the IB organization. An example of that is going on right now at Antioch High School, that is halfway through their application process for the IB diploma program. And this time next year, in April actually, they'll be allowed to upload their application B, which is the application for authorization, and then they will expect to host an IB committee in the fall that will evaluate their readiness to offer that program. The Cambridge mission is really quite specific. They want to pursue education with school leaders at the highest international levels of excellence. And truly, the students in our district who step up to take those advanced placement courses, international baccalaureate, Cambridge courses, are expanding their audiences in wonderful ways and allowing their work to be looked at by assessors that sometimes live in faraway places. The Cambridge programs have an extensive presence worldwide, more than 9,000 schools in 160 countries, 6 different regions. When we visited some schools in the fall, we learned that St. Augustine High School in Florida was the second school in the States to be authorized by Cambridge, and that took place in 1997. So the Cambridge programs are really relatively new in the States.
Second in the nation.
Second in the nation, yes, second in the nation. And in our state, the only Cambridge school that is approved is at Bradley Central in Cleveland, Tennessee. When a school decides that it wants to be approved by Cambridge, it must move through these 4 steps. The first one of which is to complete an online statement of interest, is what they call it. And this alerts Cambridge to the existence of the school and to their intent, and then they are immediately contacted by the American regional manager, happens to be Sherry Reach, and she finds out about the school, sets up some dates to visit, so lots of emails and phone calls go back and forth between those second and third steps. And then the schools, after they complete their to-do list, they receive their letter of approval from Cambridge. It's a very exciting day for them. Our journey actually began a little more than a year ago with an orientation session at Deerfield Beach, which was conducted by Sherry Reach herself. And this also began a really wonderful Cambridge friendship with her. Then in September, 10 members of the MNPS team went down to look at 2 schools that she had recommended. One was Rockledge High, and the other the St. Augustine High that's pictured here. Fortunately for us, in a past life, Jay Steele worked at St. Augustine High, so he knew some of the school personnel and was able to ease the entrance for us into that school. And 10 days after our visit to those schools, Sherry Reach came to Nashville and made presentations to the 4 schools who had expressed interest in becoming Cambridge approved. And so the result of all that was the approval of these 4 schools, and they're listed here on the slide in the order in which they were approved chronologically, in November 2012 and January 2013. And you also see the names of the executive principals and the all-important building coordinators, which the Cambridge program requires to be a liaison between the Cambridge people, the CIE, and the school across the pond, as they say. And like the IB, the Cambridge programs offer a continuum of uninterrupted learning for students from kindergarten through high school. Our high schools have elected to offer the IGSE grade 9 classes for next school year, and then add 1 Cambridge class per year as the students move toward their ACE diploma. And we are also anxious to learn about the Cambridge 1 program for middle school students and also the elementary students. So we'll be learning about those and answering questions from those schools as in the coming months. So a student can earn an ACE diploma if he or she passes 6 credits worth of examinations and has to offer 1 exam in each one of these 3 categories: the maths and the sciences, the languages, the arts and the humanities. And the nice thing about that is that this offers flexibility for the students, because the students, because of the choices, the students can emphasize strengths and interests and preferences. The students that we talked with and the panels, student panels that we heard on our visits were very anxious to tell us about the whole school, their involvement in the total school program. They were musicians and athletes. They took AP courses. They were in the JROTC, and they were very pleased about what this did for their resumes. We don't yet have any testimonials from our MNPS students, but this is one of many on the Cambridge website. This is Christopher Hansen from Stanford University, who thinks that the Cambridge ACE program got him where he is. And he says it's a brilliant program with fantastic teachers, requires a lot of work, but it's given him a wonderful head start, and he's grateful to Cambridge for that. And for additional information about the program, this is the website that has layers of links with very informative and interesting details about the program itself. So this is the new program offering for advanced academics, and I would like to introduce you to a new person in our advanced academics team, and that is Matt Nelson. Matt came to work on Monday, the 1st of July. He came to us from Memphis. He has had curriculum experience across the levels, the grade levels. He, this week, is completing his doctoral comprehensive exams for his doctorate. So good luck with that. And we are very anxious to begin our work with him as the coordinator for gifted services in our district. He is filling the vacancy that was created by the retirement of Beth O'Shea. Anxious to work with you, Matt.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So we're very excited to get the ACE program started in a number of our high schools, and also to add IB in some other schools, and really build the breadth and quality of advanced academics at our secondary level. Thank you very much for making that presentation.
Can we entertain questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Dr. Cheney? Thank you. That's a great presentation. And when you mentioned the Cambridge one for middle school students, are you looking to expand that program into middle schools?
Yes.
Then?
In fact, the site coordinators, the building coordinators, are actually talking with the leadership teams at the middle schools, especially in their clusters, and working to recruit and inform with information sessions.
So those feeder middle schools will be the ones that would be first considered then?
First considered, yes, because they are the ones who express interest. But any school that expresses interest, we would certainly help to understand the program as they consider the feasibility and the fit of these programs at their school.
Thank you. Any of my colleagues have any questions of Dr. Cheney? Michael?
Thank you. I'm curious, as you guys think about this, how you might use it in recruiting. If you think about market share, how do you use this in recruiting students to each of these high schools?
There was a really quick turnaround this year because the schools were authorized in November and January, and we were putting out the message at the same time that we were going through the authorization and saying to the students, come along and be a part of this program that we don't yet have. But we couldn't say that we were authorized yet because that's totally against their guidelines. And on the one hand, the program kind of advertises itself. So the welcoming packet from Cambridge, which has just arrived at the schools because the contract has just been officially signed by Cambridge and Metro government, And that packet contains lots of marketing materials and logo designs that can be used with brochures and that sort of thing. The very first thing that the schools did was put up some information on their websites. And that was just about the only thing that can be done except word of mouth. And so now what the schools are doing is planning dinners, information sessions, open houses, and so on for their students and their school populations for the beginning of school. And there's a great deal of outreach. I was just at Stephen Schaefer's school, Overton, at the end of the school year, and Overton was had invited persons and parents from the middle schools to come and talk with the faculty members about what the Cambridge program might be. Of course, as we go along and move through the program, we will know more about it and we will understand.
Do you think, are there any sort of enrollment projections for this goal 5 to 10 years from now? Will this require any board support in terms of additional funding?
Well,
and where do you see this program going?
Yes, and that's an important question because this program, as the IB and the AP, doesn't want to close doors. It wants to be open to students who are willing to take on the challenges. So what the schools have, I think a couple of the schools have a 25 student cohort, and then a couple of the schools have 2 classes of students that have registered for these courses for the freshman year. So I think what we would like to see is large numbers of students in the IGSE classes, in the 9th and 10th grade classes, so that they could then refine their skills to the extent that they can make decisions about what program they would like to enter. It would likely be the ACE. They would likely travel on through the ACE program. If they decided to take AP classes, they would be ready to do that. If they wanted to do an IB program, they could choose that. And so the ACE courses we see as really foundational and helping the students decide and get ready for what they want to do. So there would be probably many more students in the IGSE courses than in the ACE program. And there would be increased funding necessary for teacher training. But in the IGSE programs, there are not required student exams, so there are not required fees per student. And they can be taken for $73 per student or not, and they make good checkpoints, so we would probably want to have some of those tests. But the ACE program then would be funded depending on the number of students in the courses, and they would have to pay per course that they take. The exam.
Trying to rein you back in. Is there a 5 or a 10-year projection for student enrollment? And do you have any sort of quantifiable numbers around increased funding over the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? And
yes,
what the program will
yes, we do have a budget, a 5-year budget for that increased funding, and I would say that a really good number for ACE diploma students would be 50 at the schools.
50 over all 4 schools? Or
no, 50 per school would be a good number.
In a year or 2 years?
For the senior year. The junior year, 50, the senior year, 50 students.
So we would deem this program, one measure of success might be 4 years from now.
Yes.
We'd see 200 children.
Yes.
50 per school.
Yes.
With an ACE, an ACE certificate.
Right.
And for that would open doors for them going to college.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Oh, yes.
And what kind of cost over the next 4 years might this program be? I'm trying to get to return on my investment or return on our investment. And if we're making choices and programs to invest in, right? How much is this going to cost, and what can we expect?
We had a race to the top proposal for these 4 schools for the first year, which was about $99,000 for all 4 schools for the first year.
Over the next 4 years.
Right, and over the next 4 years, that would be multiplied.
So $400,000 roughly.
Yes.
Over 4 years for 200 children to graduate 4 years from now with an ACE degree, or an ACE
diploma
that hopefully opens the door wider for more selective colleges and universities.
Yes, yes. And those numbers now, you know, those are estimates, and those numbers will change.
And the funding source you think is raised to the top, which ends in a year? Or
it does. It ends in September.
Will you be looking for this board to fund this program and look for cuts in other areas to fund this program, or to try to get supplemental dollars?
Yes.
Okay.
We would look, yes, we look for a foundation, or we're always looking for things, but that would be, it's always good to have the board support.
And how will this, as we go through a strategic review of our budget and align on the governance committee, where does this show up? Where does this show up in the 2013-14 budget for the first $99,000?
Right. It's the advanced academics line item. I think it's 2136.
Thank you.
Yes.
Dr. Gentry. Dr. Chaney?
Sorry. So you alluded to, sort of in passing, teacher training. So I guess I'm trying to understand. We've talked a lot about what will it take to support the students. So what about the teacher training? Because it wasn't in the presentation, but I kind of assumed that with this being a new program and having the rigor that we're assuming it's in there, what is the preparation for a teacher? Just if you can briefly, you know, is it a volunteer basis? Is it the same teachers who are your IB teachers in these schools today? Can you speak to who those teachers are, how many per school on average, and then what's the cost to support their development, their training and development to be able to support the students to successful completion of an ACE diploma?
We have biology, math, and science, and English being offered at each of the IGSE schools. So to begin with, we have 3 Cambridge teachers per school. The teachers are required to have the level 1 training, which they have had May 6th through 8th when the Cambridge people came to McGavock for the training. And that is good because that was close, but those teachers have to have face-to-face training there. There is also much opportunity for online training with level 2 assessment training, which is a bit cheaper. And that's good for us and a different kind of learning for the teachers to undergo. But they find that they enjoy that. So then they would undergo the level 1 training. Every new teacher, level 1 training, then the level 2, the assessment training, and they can also attend conferences along the way to talk with other teachers about what has been going on. The teachers have to work on the assessment process, and as I have become more familiar with the program, and I went to the training also at McGavock, I have decided that a great deal of initiative is going to be required of the teachers to investigate the website, because there is a password protected section of the website that has on it many examples of student work from years past, examples of student answers to questions, and the assessor's remarks to those. And so those will be excellent examples and exemplars for the teachers as they learn. But it will require a great deal of reading on their part and attending the training, all of which we keep up with. It becomes a part of their record, and it's excellent training. One of the trainers at McGavock was actually the author of the Cambridge-approved text for math.
So is the cost of those tests baked into the $99,000 already, or is that on top of that?
No, that's included.
Okay. And my other question, and you may not have decided yet, but do you intend to determine what additional beyond the level 1 each teacher must do? Because right now it sounds that they can go to the website if they want to go beyond level 1. Are we going to set a standard for all of our teachers to have to complete something additional beyond the level 1 training?
Yes, well, actually, Cambridge requires beyond the level 1.
Okay.
The level 1 is basic information about the program itself, and then the level 2 is strategies and more readings. The curriculum itself is not a normal, it's not the curriculum we're accustomed to. The English, for example, the English book for the freshmen is divided into sections. One of them is leisure, another is work, which includes education, another is ideas, which includes science and math, and there are nonfiction items within those sections that students have to read. And they find themselves not only reading a prospectus from a university, but also developing a prospectus for a university that they would like to attend. It's quite wonderfully conceived.
So back to the teachers, that level 1 training they've already received, they'll be required to do more.
Yes.
To maintain their certification as Cambridge teachers.
Truly. They are required to do level 1 even before they enter the classroom with the students. And then the next levels come along as they become more experienced and gain, and they know what questions they need to ask. And they have themselves some student examples on which to build.
And then are the site coordinators responsible for sort of tracking and monitoring that the teachers have completed those additional?
Yes, they are responsible for keeping up with all of that and letting us know and letting the building principals know.
Okay.
Anybody else? Any questions?
I'm listening and wondering if this isn't a program that could be expanded fairly easily without a lot of extra cost once it's implemented in the school initially, because it seems to me that the cost would be the teachers and the testing and the teacher training. But is this can we accommodate a lot more children over time? Is that the plan? And then, beyond the 4 years that you've mentioned.
Yes, and I think that is a good concept, because the more teachers we have trained, then the more students who can benefit from them. And of course, we always like to have train the trainer. We always like our teachers to be able to train others. And we will stay close with Sherry Reach and investigate all of those possibilities with her as we go along. We will be good stewards of the funds, but there are things we'll have to do, like pay the annual fees and pay the training fees.
Anybody else? Thank you, Dr. Chaney.
Thank you.
All right. I just have 2 other quick things that I'd like to mention. One is, as you know, as board members, we deferred on approval of 2014-15 calendar. We're doing quite a bit of work on that during the month of July to bring to your recommendation in August. And one event that we're having is a public discussion on the calendar, the balanced calendar and the options that we have, and that's on Wednesday, July 24th at 5 p.m. here in the boardroom. Where the calendar committee's meeting again this month. We're soliciting input from teachers and parent advisory councils involved in this to hear from parents, and quite a bit of work going into leading up to the public meeting, and then a presentation to you in August on the 3 proposals that were presented to you earlier. We also have, and this is one announcement that I want to make that I didn't make earlier, is that the week of July 8th through the 12th, which is this week, is immunization week. Last year we had 7th graders are required to get 2 additional immunizations now in law for the last 2 years. Last year we had about 3,000 students, a little over 3,000 students who were 7th graders who went to school the first day without immunizations. They have to have proof of immunization to stay in school. And we're pulling out a lot of stops. There was a press conference yesterday. We're communicating with parents of children, but I want to use this opportunity to say, if you have a 7th grader, they need 2 additional immunizations and proof of that by the first day of school. Madam Chair, that concludes my report for the evening.
Thank you, Dr. Fisher. We'll move on to committee reports. Ms. Froh.
Yes, I have a very brief governance committee report. We did have a meeting immediately prior to this board meeting, and we are continuing our process of both working through our existing policies methodically and also trying to begin doing some more visionary work. And we have discussed trying to sort of connect the dots and put pieces together between our vision, our mission, our strategic plan, our existing governance policies, and the director's evaluation. And I'm excited that we're starting to take some steps toward some real goal setting and working together as a board in setting the vision for the upcoming few years. And that concludes my, I should also say, I'm sorry, we also will be planning another meeting probably within the next month or so, and I'll be announcing that at an upcoming meeting. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Froh. Next on the agenda is board chair report, and I do not have a report tonight, thankfully. So with no further business, Ms. Froh?
This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you very much.